then I'll go back and share the agenda page.
All right. Well, good evening. It is 6:31, calling the Energy Committee meeting to order for Wednesday, August 9th, 2023. We do have a quorum with Kevin, Eric, Dar, and myself here, and Matt is the moderator tonight. Kevin Thorley's on vacation, and we'll see if the other folks are able to join us, but going ahead. First
Matt Wood is here.
Matt, hello, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
Very good.
Hello.
Hey, public comment. There's nobody here in the room. Nobody has connected, have they? No. All right, so we'll pass on that. Moving on, then the next item is approval of the minutes, draft minutes of the July 26th meeting. First major item we talked about was the UVM greenhouse gas inventory that Melinda gave us a presentation on. The next item was planning for our energy fair, which is on our agenda tonight. Next was the Champlain Valley button-up event, for which the training webinar is at 7 tonight, but they will be recording it, so we can listen into that another time. We talked about the fiscal year 23 annual report, which has been drafted. It's not on the agenda tonight. We do have plenty of time before it has to be submitted, so we need to be doing cleanup on that. And our upcoming Living Green article, which Kevin Matson has drafted and we're editing, and we'll talk about that tonight. And of course, Melinda is on vacation. Any comment on the minutes as presented?
Good to me.
Yeah. I hear a motion, please, to adopt as presented.
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes as presented.
Second. And a second from Eric. All those in favor of approving the minutes of July 26, 2023 as presented, say aye.
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 The ayes have it. 5. Any nays? No here. Okay, so 5-0 is approved. Okay. Next, our presentation is Williston 2050 and the role of the Energy Committee in that, and it's subtopics of the town energy plan. And Matt, this is really your lead, please.
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and stop screen sharing so we can just talk for a little bit.
Okay.
And so, as most of you probably know, we're getting ready to start writing Williston's next comprehensive plan, the town plan. This will be the major work item for the Planning Commission over the next year and a half. And from now, or rather from about May until going forward till December, January, will really be our big public engagement push, going out and collecting public input in a number of formats to help inform the way the commission and the advisory boards write that new plan. The goal of this plan, this is the first time we're rewriting a plan that's been in place for more than 5 years, because state law changed last time, and thus the 2017 plan extends through 2016 to 2024. So it's been 8 years, or it will have been 8 years by the time this goes up for adoption. And since the 2016 plan is sort of a recapitulation of the 2011 plan, which is sort of a recapitulation of the 2006 plan, my marching orders to the staff and planning commission are this is a clean slate rewrite. Really take a hard look at everything that's in the plan, and where the plan ultimately lands is that final chapter, the implementation chapter and implementation schedule of how is the town actually going to do the things that it says it wants to do in the plan. And what I'm hoping to bring to that is two things. One, a little more detail on what are the actions that the town proposes to take over the life of this plan, which should be August of 2025 through August of 2032. And what are within those sets of goals, what are the priorities, and where we know there might be conflict or compromise between a couple of goals or actions, how does the town want to try to resolve that? So we want to manage growth, we want housing, there's tension there. We want to calm traffic, we want to ease congestion, et cetera. So though that sort of nuance, both sort of the granularity of what that to-do list looks like at the end of the plan, and also putting those items in some kind of order will be new. That's what we're hoping to bring to it. And a component of the town plan is, of course, the energy plan. And that plan, I think, deserves a sort of mid-level re-examination at this point, probably not a complete rewrite, and probably it makes the most sense for it to continue to exist as its own document that's attached to the town plan. Just for purposes of continuing to have substantial deference with the Public Utility Commission, some of the other purposes that plan serves. That said, I think there's a couple things I'd be looking for from the Energy Committee. One would be to, look at the goals and implementation items in that energy plan, ask if any of them should show up or get more mention in other areas of the overall town plan. In other words, can we sort of stitch the two documents together a little better, ensure that they're more harmonious with one another? For example, putting any zoning bylaw amendments that the energy plan calls for in the context of other things that the town might take on as it relates to land use, things like that. The other thing would be to, ask if at this point, with the energy plan in place, any energy planner position filled, energy committee established, are there some other things that should be updated in the plan that just reflect the progress the town's made in the last couple of years? So the last part that we're asking of all of our committees that we staff is you folks can help us promote the public engagement effort around the town plan. We've branded this plan effort Williston 2050. Those of you who were around in the 90s might remember when everything in 1998 was called something 2000. Right, it's a nice even number. It's easy to remember, and well, now we're branding things 2050. The other part is what the town sets out to do in this plan and get going between 2025 and 2032. A lot of that maybe won't really show up in a really visible way in Williston until around 2050. That, as things often happen, and I was told 15 years ago when I was hired in Williston that we were about to build a park and ride, and we were about to reconfigure the Industrial Avenue Williston Road intersection. Two things that are currently under construction now. So, the first step is getting it on the list. Then the next step is, actually doing that task or completing that goal. So, we do have our website, williston2050.com, really easy to remember. We have cards with links to the website on them. We have bumper stickers that just cover this graphic, Williston 2050, livable, resilient, equitable. I'll talk a little bit about that theme in a second. We're updating with events. Yes, Emily and I were at Truckin' Tuesday last night with the one truck and the pouring rain, soliciting public input. And we were doing an activity we call Postcards from the Future. You might have seen these yellow cards around, and we're asking people, could you imagine yourself in 2050 and write a letter back to 2023 and say, gosh, it's 2050 and Williston's now like this, and it's because we decided to do whatever that is. So imagining what does if you want Williston in 2050 to be a more livable, resilient, equitable place, what does your town plan say in 2025, and what do you start putting into it in 2023 so that your version of 2050 looks like that? And we just have a few scans in here of some of those cards, but we're also, coding them in and feeding that input back to the planning commission as they start shaping their further public engagement. And then as in the wintertime, we start helping them write the draft chapters of the plan. So a little bit more about the livable, resilient, equitable framework. And I'll try to make this so we can see it all, or at least some of it. We like to think of livable, resilient, equitable as a weave that gets brought into otherwise the required elements of a town plan. So if you've ever been involved in a comprehensive plan, the state of Vermont has required elements that have to be in your town plan. There's 12 of them. And so going down the left-hand column, you see the beginning of the required elements here. And I've sort of shorthanded what statute says, but you have to have objectives and policies. You have to have a land use component. What's your zoning going to say? You have to have a transportation component. What's happening out on your roads or with other elements of your transportation system? What do you propose to do? Utilities and facilities, natural resources, education, et cetera. It goes down to implementation, housing, what's happening with your neighbors, what's your energy plan, what's your economic development plan, hazard mitigation. So those are the required elements. And then because we wanted to be 12 and 12 and have a nice square weave, we thought about attributes of the idea of livable, resilient, equitable. So what makes a place livable? What makes a place resilient? What makes a place equitable? And these adjectives, they can mean different things to different people. One that was really tough for me to kind of come up with was in the resilient column, I have that word promising. And the reason I have that is because I wanted an adjective that captured the idea of a place that creates opportunity. We often hear from people, I sure wish my kids could be here. I wish, I've got a kid graduating from college. I wish they could find work in a home in Williston. Or I wish that I could age in place. But what's really fun is when you start taking any of these attributes under livable, resilient, equitable, and start trying to line them up with any of the attributes in the required elements. So, you get these really interesting ones, like if I go to promising and the idea of creating opportunity. Well, what's your transportation system look like if it's going to help create opportunity in the town? What does that mean? Does it mean greater mobility for more kinds of people? Does it mean less congestion? Does it mean your transportation system can support trucking and parts of Williston that are more industrial? So it's just a way of really stretching your brain. And we had a lot of fun at the 4th of July. We printed up a big banner with this graphic on it, and we bought 300 of these little sticky balls. If you're in the room, you can see one stuck to the ceiling in here because we tested them out and it hasn't come down yet. They're quite durable.
Wow.
And we had people throwing balls at the grid and then seeing where they landed and then letting that spark a conversation about how are some creative ways that we could be thinking about the elements of our town plan within this framework. So that's livable, resilient, equitable. Postcards from the Future is just sort of our quick activity that we're doing at our public engagement events right now. Also on the website, we've grabbed sort of a greatest hits of some recent videos of things going on in town. This is the select board's review of the housing needs assessment, which was a big project we had recently. This was the charrette report coming out of the Taft Corners project. So when the vision plan was first introduced, here's a discussion about growth and change and development in Williston that happened back in the summer of 2020. Just a few things where people could kind of dip their toe in and get a feel for some of the stuff that's been going on in Williston in the last few years. So I would invite any members of the Energy Committee who are going to be going to an event in Williston. We can set you up with the postcards, the stack of bumper stickers, the clipboards. We bought a rural delivery mailbox that has the Williston 2050 logo on it, so we have people actually put postcards in the mailbox, which is kind of fun. And, even last night in the pouring rain with very few people around at Adams Farm, Emily and I collected 8 or 10 cards from
Really?
people. It's really interesting conversations. It's an activity that works with young people. It works with shoppers, it works with workers, it works with residents. And if anybody ever says, oh, I can't fill that out, I don't live here, we say, no, please do, because you're here right now. Assuming it's an event in Williston, why are you here? And what do you think about this place? We want to bring that regional perspective to it as well. So that's sort of the two sides of this. One is to introduce this committee to the idea for public engagement. The other is what I talked about first, which is, the energy plan is part of the comp plan. And we do want to think both how that interacts with the overall comp plan and whether there's elements of the energy plan that should be revised as part of this effort. I'm going to stop screen sharing because I don't have a good graphic for this, but talk a little bit about time frame. As I said, we're working on public engagement right now and probably through the early winter. We have a municipal planning grant and have used those funds to retain North Star Planning, who are helping us develop more engagement materials. So we'll be filling out the website. We'll be adding some things like story maps. If you've ever been to a planning effort where you put a dot on a map, dot voting, both live and digital, survey materials that will get out to Williston residents, so we can also do broad-based surveys, and even some materials that we're hoping to bring into the schools this fall. So we've had some meetings with one of the 7-8 grade house team teachers in social studies. We're hoping to both work with the students in that particular house over at Central, starting with planning 101. What is this? Why are we doing it? All the way to the point of hopefully having them help us collect some information from their fellow students, by using some of these techniques like dot voting and surveying, in the school lobby. So a lot of opportunities to jump in. We're going to try to do that through the early winter. And then we're going to start having our conversations with the planning commission at that point about what do you want these chapters to say? And either work from a vision that lives at the top of each chapter of these required elements, or work from the to-do list, work from the implementation side. What are the tasks that you think the town ought to be taking on over this 8-year period? The pitch internally to our department heads and other leaders in town is, what should this plan say that Williston's trying to do that's going to help you go get a grant? So, whenever we're a town official writing a grant, looking for funding for a project, one of the questions is always going to be, is this something that your comprehensive plan says you should be doing? What's the support for it? And frankly, I've been a little frustrated the last couple of years trying to write good grant support letters based on what's in the current plan. There's just not a lot of detail. The economic development chapter in the current town plan basically says, yeah, there's some stuff about this in land use and transportation, go look there. And that's really hard to cite when you're writing a grant for something that's coming from an economic development agency, despite the fact that we know there are opportunities in that sector. So that's the kind of thing we really want to achieve here. So we'll start writing that text. We'll start working with the planning commission on that in the winter and spring. We want to bring a text version of this document to the select board around this time next year, certainly by the beginning of September, because we want to give them a whole year or almost a whole year to tackle those various chapters and have them be able to take a really hard look at what those chapters say and what they say the priorities of the town are. Do that through the early spring of 25. And then this plan needs to be voted on in place by August of 2025 when the current plan expires. So it's a long path. It's a big effort. We want it to be really good. We want it to be award-winning. We want it to really dig in deep with the town about what the town should be doing over this time period. We want it something we want it to be something that, committees like yourselves, elected officials and town staff can really lean on as a decision support tool going forward. So when things do change in town, you say, well, what are we gonna do about this? Well, what's the town plan say? And have the town plan say something that really does provide guidance. So it's a lofty goal, but Williston's a place that uses its town plan. So we know if we do a really good document, we know the town's gonna go out and use it. So we do it once every 8 years. Let's, kind of hit a home run with it. That's the pitch. So I'm happy to answer any questions folks have about that or entertain any, discussion.
My question, when the CERC went down,
Yep.
was the Wentz
Yep.
improvements to infrastructure. And none of that's going anywhere, it seems to me, so we're having those ideas. Would be ideas for grants, like one of the, I know, Mountain View Road, making it safe for bicycles, which is not, in my opinion, it's dangerous. Was in the Wentz, but the state's not gonna necessarily spend money, it's a town road,
Mhm.
so I don't know if the state has any, even, it's not on their radar.
Can you explain
It
what
was
that
in the
is?
Wentz document. What's
Yeah, can you explain what that is?
Wentz, maybe you can describe it better.
So following the cancellation of the CERC Highway,
Which was what, 05 or something maybe?
2011
2011. Okay.
cancellation.
Yeah.
There was a planning process that came out of that. There were several, and the one that Williston participated in was called the WENTS, the Williston Essex Network Transportation Study.
That to take place of the CERC or something?
Right, so it was to look at improvements that the state could help Williston make that would mitigate congestion, in a way that the CERC otherwise would have mitigated congestion.
Gotcha.
And so like Kevin mentioned, adding bicycle facilities to Mountain View Road was one of those projects, and we collectively refer to these as CERC alternative projects. And they do show up in the state transportation improvement plan, but they often show up towards the very far end of the timeline in
Which is
the
outside the 2050
Yeah.
window.
10 years until now,
Glacial,
so it's,
glacial.
They're low priority.
they're not highly prioritized. So Mountain View Road is one, multi-use path along Williston Road connecting Taft Corners, to the village is one. Trader Lane is one, and Trader Lane's only a partial. It's if we, the town and the landowner build Trader Lane, the state would pay for the intersection. And there may be a few others. James Brown Drive intersection improvements with 2A was the shovel-ready project, which has just barely been completed now.
Yeah.
And it does, it reduces congestion on 2A. It provides
Yes.
that left turn lane.
Important.
I believe Industrial Ave in Mountain View is a CERC alternatives project. That's an intersection improvement schedule. It's coming anyway. But
Roundabout?
no, it's a extra left turn lane.
Yeah.
And I can't remember.
Yeah, okay.
So there's this idea that the state said, hey, communities that are impacted, we're not gonna build this CERC highway, but we know you have issues that you've been banking on the CERC highway was gonna fix for you all these years. Let's help you fix them. But what's been very frustrating for the municipalities is how long that's taken or how far out those have been scheduled. Crescent Connector in Essex is another CERC project.
Does the town, just curious, does the town have a position as to whether they wanted the CERC or was the town happy that it didn't get put in? Or was there not an actual town position, it was more person by person?
I don't think there was. I think the town's position in the 2006 plan was the CERC is going to happen
So,
and we need to, plan around it. And then, I was here for the writing of the 2011 plan, and in fact, the drafts we had said that same thing. And then suddenly the CERC wasn't gonna happen. And so we
Okay.
pivoted and said, the CERC's not gonna happen. We will engage with whatever, we sort of knew the WENTS was gonna happen, and we said, we'll engage with that. And
interesting.
it's never, at this stage, I think what would be useful in the plan would be for the town to take a position on that it really wants those alternatives projects to happen.
Right.
That's what you're getting at.
That's actually why I brought it up.
Yeah.
So they were studies, they were worthwhile. like the one in Essex Junction, you said the bypass, right?
Right.
That's happening now. It's a very good idea. right?
Yeah.
It's gonna, you know what I'm
So,
talking about.
I'm not
right?
familiar with it.
Well, they're, as you come into Essex Junction, get almost to Five Corners. They're building a loop that goes behind the Lincoln Inn, crosses,
Railroad? No, it's not.
Maple.
The salvage
Yeah.
place? there?
Yeah, and then comes out on that little street that comes back into
15?
Upper Main Street and back on 15 on Upper Main. And I'm not sure from a personal perspective how that's gonna work at all. Or it for some people, and I'm not sure if it's bi-directional,
it is.
it is gonna be yeah,
I believe it
okay.
is.
It will avoid going through Five Corners for
Yeah.
some people.
Okay, that's happening?
That's under construction right now.
Wow.
Oh, you drive to Essex Junction,
Really?
Yeah, you get
I've been
there
there in a few weeks.
and, yes, some of it's paved, some of it's
Jeez.
going through
Okay.
right now. So it's an interesting little one that I lived in Essex for 18 years and, they were talking about it, and I imagined this huge bypass, and it's just a little loop that goes around.
Consider the amount of discussion.
Yeah,
For a small room.
yeah.
So to sort of close the loop on that a little bit, no pun intended. One reaction we had at the town level to the sort of the slowness of the completion of any of the circ alternatives projects was, when we last at the planning commission revised the transportation impact fee. Starting in 2019, I think, we raised the fee up from $700 a vehicle trip to $1,923. We had to come up with a revised project list of what would the town consider spending that money on. And the planning commission was saying the same things you're hearing tonight. You know, we really want the circ alternatives projects to happen, but we're not supposed to have to pay for these. These are supposed to come out of state transportation funds. And I called the director of policy and planning at VTrans, Michelle Boomhauer, who used to be the co-director of CCRPC. And I said, so my question is, if we made it so we could spend some impact fee money on getting these projects going, you know, if they need design, if they need further study, if there's something we could do locally, would that possibly make them happen sooner? And if we did that, would we get our money back? And the answer was maybe and no. So we put them in. We put in $100,000 for each of those projects, which is a pittance compared to the cost of building them, but it's enough to get some design work off the ground. And they've just been kind of sitting there on the project list for the last few years. I would love it if we could get further with that. One of the elements of the comprehensive plan will be, I think, to take a look at the townwide official map. You know, we had the work of the mobility committee. We ended up with an adopted townwide official map that plans for new streets, bike paths, sidewalks, and bike lanes. It was something that was sort of triggered by needing to do that in Taft Corners, but also having the work of the mobility committee to rely on saying, hey, you know, we got all this stuff. It's time to get an official map in place for Williston. But what a great place to start on revising and prioritizing and starting to think again at that more granular level about what are those improvements that would sort of get us the best bang for the buck. And, you know, Kevin, I know we're going to talk about your article in Safe Routes to Schools. And, you know, I sat in on one of those meetings, a couple of those meetings.
So, yeah.
And, you know, talking with Amy Brewer, and I said, you know, maybe we need the town to think about a policy of not just, you know, make things better for bike ped, which is more or less what the current plan says, but should we focus on building a better network from the schools act? Should that be the
Anything to
locus?
get something going, because there's not much
You know.
movement in that direction, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I see sidewalks going in at Blair Park. Let's see. I haven't seen much else in the last few years.
It's
There's not much motivation. I don't think, I don't know who makes the decisions, so.
Yeah, and I think that,
And I don't know, you're not directly gonna say build sidewalk, right? So.
no, what I would love to do is have a town plan that said, here's the top 10 pedestrian improvements we need to make in Williston, and we're committing to,
Yeah.
making progress on them, and then have the elected officials adopt that plan, and then, it comes down through to whatever department or agency is gonna work on it. And I draw a really strong parallel. I live in South Burlington. I used to serve on the bike ped committee there. And after I left, they really got going and they really did a bunch of amazing stuff. One of the things they did was get the ballot initiative called Penny for Paths through. So there's a dedicated funding source for bicycle and pedestrian improvements. It's a penny on the tax rate. In fact, the grand list got so much bigger in South Burlington, they went back and there were folks saying, wait a minute, it's a penny on the rate. Now you're getting all this other money. And they said, have you seen the cost of construction lately? Like, that's a good thing. But Penny for Paths projects you might be aware of in South Burlington, the flashing beacon and pedestrian refuge island on Kennedy Drive, striped sidewalks on 116 between Kennedy Drive and Heinsberg Road. And I was really glad to hear 2 projects that are going to be underway this year, I believe, are flashing beacon with pedestrian crossing and refuge island in 2 locations on Williston Road between the airport and Heinsberg Road. And one of them lines up exactly with the scariest left turn I have to make on my bike when I ride home on Williston Road. It goes into Hayes Avenue. And so my choice when I'm commuting home at night is somehow in traffic, find my way into that turn lane and turn into Hayes Avenue.
That's how Kennedy?
One street toward the airport from Gracie's.
Okay.
So Hayes is a dead end, but
Okay.
there's a little.
Oh, you're on Williston Road.
So I'm on Williston Road coming from Hayes.
That whole
So
road.
that must be starting, because today I came through there and there's 2 crosswalks. And there was a man crossing in front of me, and I stopped on Williston Road, and they've got these big industrial size signs that say crossing
Yeah,
there, and
so
I've
they're-
never seen those before.
So they're getting people ready
Yeah.
to do that. So my choice is either to somehow make it through traffic and make that left turn, or go to the Heinsberg Road intersection.
Yeah,
And basically be a pedestrian twice on the crosswalk and then hop back on and or get into the left turn lane at Heinsberg Road, which is my
Yeah,
least favorite.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
well, yeah, you've got no good solution.
So,
Yeah.
you
Acting
know,
like a pedestrian on a bike is never a great
it's
solution.
hard.
It can be safer, but. I don't-
So I look at our neighbor in South Burlington, in my home city at this point, and I say, well, they set a policy direction. They said, let's get some projects done. The bike ped committee did a bunch of auditing work to go out and actually look and survey, like, what are the bad spots? What are the ones we should try to fix first? And now that's starting to show up in real infrastructure that will actually make a big difference for people.
I went to Rick McGuire and had a few people we asked if we could have a bike path committee. And we were told that Bruce didn't have time for it, didn't want to deal with it.
I think if you want to have a bike path or bike ped committee in Williston, I think the town plan needs to say that there's gonna be one. And it
Okay.
needs to be a town
So
plan
you
that
need-
the board votes for.
So we put in a postcard for that?
Well, I mean, I think it needs to be something that citizens say they want and, that it comes with a burden of somebody having a staff, and maybe it gets staffed out of planning. I mean, what the heck, we spend all our nights here anyway. What's another committee? But I'll tell you, Kevin, I had another recent interaction. The new executive director of Local Motion emailed me and she said, I want to come out to your town. I want you to take me around on my bike, show me the best spots and the worst spots in Williston.
Cool.
And so we went out 2 Fridays ago and I said, I'm just gonna take you around Williston. You tell me what's good and what's bad.
Right.
I'm just gonna show you what I'm
She'll
seeing.
be able to tell.
So we started here, we went down to Taft Corners, went through Cottonwood, we went up around Maple Tree Place, we went up to Hurricane Lane to look at the park and ride. Back down through Marshall Ave, Blair Park, Zephyr Road, and back on the
Wow.
bike path by Allenbrook. So that's where I took her.
And not
Wow.
Industrial Avenue or
We
Mountain View.
Didn't do Industrial Ave or Mountain View.
So I'm afraid of what's gonna happen. That's gonna be a sidewalk.
I'll have to
I'm gonna
look.
have to try to fight that because local or Vermont on local motion site, I'm sorry, everyone, taking up.
Sorry.
The, locomotion site, they have a link to V-Trans, and it says that, you know, my pet peeve. I don't even have to tell him.
He doesn't have to tell me.
There's a link there, and it's twice the price.
For the concrete.
Two X,
Concrete,
two
yeah.
X. So you did,
Right, yeah.
It's bumpy. I hear you.
So,
So,
So what was the feedback from that? Cause
So
every
it's-
road you rattle off is.
Yeah.
Well,
I
so
wouldn't ride my bike
I
to
would-
those places. I avoid every road you mentioned.
yeah.
except for Zephyr, I live on it. You
Yeah.
can do that.
Well, I showed her.
Because you've got a
Zephyr,
bike path.
Well, Zephyr's my alternative, one of my
Yeah.
back routes.
That was one of the better things.
Yeah.
And showing her where the path would eventually go up to Meadow Run, you know, coming out of there, but. You know, so we're up at Hurricane Lane. And we've got the new V-Trans bike path that takes you up to Hurricane Lane from Taft Corners, which is great. And we're looking across however many lanes of 2A at this point, where the park and ride slip lane is. And coming out of the park and ride, there's a concrete sidewalk that ends at the edge of pavement on 2A. And it, you know, points right at the side of Hurricane Lane and where you would be if you came across Hurricane Lane from this pedestrian path. And so you'll notice there's no crosswalk here. There's no pedestrian facility. I don't know that you could just stripe a crosswalk here and get away with it because there's an awful lot going on. It might need to be something quite a bit more. And Christina's like, well, gosh darn it, I'm gonna email V-Trans. And why is this, you know, like this path is a V-Trans project, this park and ride's a V-Trans project. How is this okay?
Yeah.
So she sent that email. And she got an answer that was kind of like, these are two separate projects and they're not really coordinated with each other and we couldn't just stripe across, you know, this kind of stuff. I was like, totally,
way ahead.
you're the new ED of locomotion. You need to go have this experience. I need to just let you, you
Yeah,
know,
take the training.
sort of understand that, you know, these are some of the challenges we face. And one of the pieces of feedback out of that interaction we got from Locomotion's sort of like advocacy lead, I think is her, it's Susan Grasso emailed, and she's like, I think you guys need a bike ped committee. I was like, tell me something I don't, you know.
Right, but it's not, people from the town have communicated to V-Trans that there's a crossing is needed there, and they ignored it, they said no.
What
They said it's not safe because of the traffic is moving too fast down the hill or something like that.
Well, and they said we anticipate most people will drive to and from the park and ride, and there won't be pedestrian traffic to it.
It was brought up to them before, and they ignored it then too.
Yeah, I think it came up at DRB, one of the million times it was at DRB over the last 10 years.
Melinda mentioned it over the winter or spring
Yeah.
in one of these meetings.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
I mean,
so- and-
but they knew that was happening.
You know, you know, as a pedestrian or a cyclist, that it's very small things in infrastructure that can become total barriers.
Yeah.
And then we go and have the safe routes to schools conversation, and now you're talking about a kid.
So it is a good, it's a good way to get things moving,
It is.
and maybe even start to a bike ped committee.
You know, so I think, you know, the select board, I hope that they have a draft plan in front of them. That calls for actions, that some of those actions are in tension with one another, that some of those actions come with price tags, and they really kind of get a chance. In 24, 25 to wrestle with all of that, with advice from all of the committees. Because I think that's gonna produce the most robust plan is, you know, we don't just have a plan that says make things better for bikes, and then someone says, oh, well, that means building out this chunk of path. Have you seen the price tag on that? How could we ever do that? I guess we can ignore that one, because,
Yeah.
you know, we didn't talk about the fact that it was expensive, and it's like, well, no, talk about the fact that it's expensive. Talk, you know, favorite planner of mine has a quote, he uses it all the time, and he says, if you really want to know where a town or a city's values are, don't look at their master plan, look at their budget. And that it's true, you know, that's where the really hard decisions get made, and where taxpayers need to you know, compromise or be convinced of things. And you know, the last thing I'll leave you with is, you know, traditionally the comp plan, town plan is used a lot to inform changes to the zoning bylaw. And boy, have we used the Williston comp plan to do that. It said, consider form-based code in Taft Corners. We did form-based code in Taft Corners. It said, consider more nuanced development standards for the village. We've got a really solid draft of that going. It said, look at the impact fees, we raised the impact fees. I would not say there's nothing left to do with Williston's zoning bylaw, because there's always something, and we've got 4 of those somethings coming through in various forms in the next couple months. But regulation's only going to affect new stuff. And there's a whole lot of the town that's not new stuff, or where, yeah, sometimes you get a piece of sidewalk because somebody wants to develop the parcel behind it. But sometimes nobody wants to develop the parcel and you've got a gap. And you know, you can carry that metaphor over to any number of other public facilities or pieces of infrastructure. And I think this is a really great opportunity to try to get that all on the table at once and really think about how to prioritize it and hopefully achieve some of it. So that's my pitch. I think Williston can do it. And I think it would be really cool. And I'm watching the place I live go out and do stuff. And I think it's not that we don't do anything, but we got a second sidewalk. We're going to plow the sidewalks next winter. That's great.
That's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Yes,
I think many would say it's long overdue. But great, we're gonna do that. And that's really terrific. So that's what I got.
The mechanism for change is the town plan, what you're telling us.
I'd like it to be, we use it. We use it to shape our work plan for sure. And I hope other departments can as well.
It's funny, when you finish writing it down, it's very profound. The what's, is it WTS?
WENTS, because if we did it the other way, it was going to be the wetness. And nobody wants to call it the wetness.
So it's interesting that the things like this SERP in Essex Junction, the Mountain View Industrial Ave, as a driver, every time they put in a turning lane, it makes my life easy. And the bottom of the SERP where 2A crosses it, they went from 1 lane as you go up it to 2, and that just made life wonderful through there. But it doesn't solve any of the other things that we in the committee have talked about, hence the safe paths to school, about getting people to stop driving.
Right. In fact,
It's kind of counterproductive.
Yeah.
We all saw it in the pandemic, how little traffic there was. I think there's more traffic than there was before that now. I watch the number of cars, and when I get on the road, I'm absolutely astounded, and I drive far less than I used to because I don't work any longer, so I'm retired. But when I get out there, it isn't just because I'm retired and, I left the house today. There are a tremendous amount. The traffic is just outrageous, and we are still rural compared to most of it. So,
And that's one of the really challenging things is people will generally drive as much as it's convenient and inexpensive.
yes.
And as much as parking is convenient and
And
inexpensive.
hence when we have this whole school bus system. And then you come over to the school across the road and it is packed with parents picking up their kids or dropping their kids twice a day. Instead of putting your kids on the bus, so you gotta ask that question.
And I mean,
Well, in my day, I put my boys on the bus, I rode the bus, and so.
And I think, I like to say, I don't think people make, for lack of a nicer term, stupid decisions about transportation. They're driving the kid because they don't want to leave the kid at home and they need to scoot off to work right after. I mean, my mom used to sit at the bottom of the driveway and wait for the bus to pick us up so she could get to her job on time, because it was, she was a parent, she was cutting things that close. And then at the same time, we make the decisions that are supported by the infrastructure around us. So there are schools that have done things like moved the drop-off line a little further away from, where the buses drop off. Or Williston already said Central prioritizes, I believe, bus departure over pickup. I can't remember if you were I think that was the in-person meeting. They do some things around timing.
Yes,
like that.
yes. Oh, you see the fleet of buses leaving. Yeah.
Right, and that's
then the parents
before-
leave. Yes.
Yeah. So they do some things like that. there was a pilot, a sort of like a tactical urbanism or quick build pilot, some kids in Rutland at one of the schools did a bunch of years ago about making the drop-off area safer. They had pedestrian conflict with the parent drop-off line. They're like, we're literally gonna have a parent dropping a kid off, run another kid over. We need to do something, and it made the drop-off safer, but also slower. And, you pair that with, well, have you thought about some programmatic ways that you could get more kids walking and biking to school? Do we need adult volunteers? Do we need crossing guards? Do we need better infrastructure? Do we just need someone to get the nudge where like it's culturally okay for your kid to walk to school
And safe.
and safe?
Yeah.
And I think about all of that. My son goes to school down on Dorset Street. I live near South Burlington High School, so he's like a 20-minute bike ride, and he's gonna be 13 in September. And we test rode that route a couple times, and we do have to cross the crosswalk where Kennedy Drive comes out onto Dorset Street.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you hit the button and wait, it's okay. And in the morning, there's a lot of awareness, there's kids around, but still, it's like, this is my kid who was like a pretty small kid not that long ago. And I'm thinking of, sending him off. to
Probably
go
the good
do
thing
that.
is that whole signal is under
That's being
reconstruction,
redone. Yeah.
which
And
is going to improve that mechanism for getting across that intersection.
that's,
Yeah.
again, a really great example. And, so, and I think the other thing is there is this concept in transportation, what's called induced demand, which is the easier you make it to drive, the more people drive.
Yes.
And there's just more and more discretionary driving and
Yeah.
people who are constrained or driving is a little less convenient, they're more likely to trip change, to do a bunch of like, I'm gonna go out, so I'm gonna go to a bunch of places versus it's so easy. I'm just gonna go to one and then I'll come home and then, maybe I'll go somewhere else. And, so you get that. And generally the use of the road just rises to a certain level of congestion and then it stays there. And it's all just kind of behavioral. So we need to make improvements sometimes for safety. Sometimes congestion does result in a safety issue. Anybody who's watched, the third person on the red light at Marshall take the left up to the highway.
Yeah. And the fourth and the fifth, yes.
I had a Williston police officer once tell me, he's like, I never pull anybody over who's less than less than third person through the red light. And I was going, oh, no, it was yellow. And I said, it was red 2 cars ago. Come on.
Right.
And we're gonna have that. And there's a lot that you can do with infrastructure design.
Infrastructure design as simple
do
as
that.
cameras.
Yeah.
Ticketing cameras.
Nobody wants to talk about it.
Oh, yes, that's, yes, ticketing cameras are just wonderful. Yeah, I didn't go through that, like, watch.
The lights and speed limits are just recommendations.
Yeah, that's what we have noticed.
I went on a road trip last summer where part of it was in Canada. We were up driving around the outskirts of Calgary. And before that, we've been in like really rural Canada. And so now we're kind of like city driving. And I'm like, this is amazing. We are all going within like 2K of the speed limit. And everything is, and what is it? There's just cameras over the road, like every half mile and big signs that say, speed enforced by camera. And it's not that the Canadians were just being polite Canadians. It was like, there's a very different enforcement going
Right
on.
here, if you go to the speed limit, you are up pariah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Yeah, we can talk about this.
Yeah. No, we should be.
Well, we welcome follow-up. I'll come back as many times as you want. I'll talk to Melinda about, how to kind of work this
Well,
into your arc. in the next
It
couple weeks.
gets, at least in my mind, some thought process, because I was on the original committee that wrote the energy plan. And then, we do things, a lot of our work is public interaction, and that's what we've done, but we've done some good stuff, and now really need to rethink it and say, oh, it isn't just rewriting the plan, but also looking at the next 25 years.
Mhm.
And getting it, and what does that mean? That's
Absolutely.
very nice, thank you. All right. And we haven't run out of time. We're doing well. planning for the energy fair, do you have access to that planning? It's on
It's a
the
spreadsheet,
agenda,
it's a
on the
spreadsheet.
spreadsheet,
Yeah,
and we can
hang on.
talk about where we are. It's in the agenda, the link is in the agenda.
I will bring that spreadsheet up and share it
Please.
for you.
And we can talk about who's contacted whom, because we all had divvied it up last time.
Just have to get the right, thing going. Here we go. Hopefully this is sort of legible. Hang on. There, is that better?
Much better.
Well, one more, or is that it?
Good for me.
Okay,
Good.
So the tasks,
So we have.
oh, it's the next page, is that what we're looking at?
Did we decide to alter our approach at all? I know we had a long conversation. I don't remember what came out of that.
So we,
Partners, right? So we're running-
Yeah, partners, the two partners tab is one of the context.
yeah, so we've decided on September 16th. Saturday, September 16th from 1 to 4 at the Allen Brook School. And we're calling it an energy fair this year, not just the EV Fest. And we are going to try and bring the EV ambassadors back in with their cars, as well as trying to bring as many partner vendors in who want to participate with us. So, I guess I'll open it up to around the
And
room,
the hours are,
1 to 4.
okay, it says it there, yeah.
And I'll just open it up around the room and Matt, are you still online?
Of course, yes.
Okay, I'll open up for you. Did you have anybody you were contacting about this? I know you asked for Lily's contact info.
Yeah, I got a hold of Lily and she said definitely yes for Green
Yeah.
Mountain Solar to be at our energy fair on the 16th.
All right, great.
She asked if there were any forms or anything she had to fill out, and I told her I'd let her know.
Okay, partners.
And I filled in her her contact email there.
Okay, good.
awesome.
All right.
I contacted Amy and she's gonna be out of town, as am I, on the 16th. And she can get some from local motion, she'll get back to me on it. And I also had Elons, they used to be in my neighborhood. Are they gone? I haven't seen their trucks and.
Is he not in your neighborhood anymore?
Not for the last couple of weeks, and I called them, emailed, and not getting any response. They're on vacation.
They were mowing at Creek's Edge lunchtime today,
Oh, okay.
so.
I know
Yeah.
they do the Hamlet.
They
in
haven't,
my area.
they haven't gotten back to me, but I did reach out to
It'd be
them.
great to have him.
And
That's
they
a
used to be
lawnmower
up the
company?
street, I was gonna go talk to them.
Commercial.
It's
Like
amazing.
recap or something.
To walk into a subdivision where there's 4 or 5 guys mowing and it's almost silent.
Really?
Yeah,
It's such a
I haven't
different
seen a
experience.
commercial e-mower yet, really in action.
Yeah, they are amazing and in all electric trimmers and all the other stuff, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Even if they're leaf blowing, it's
Yeah,
like.
yeah, it's
Oh, God, that's the worst. That's-
good. All right,
I'll keep trying.
all right. All right.
I didn't have any assignments. I
Oh,
don't
okay,
think.
okay. Eric? you
I Tiana got back to me just yesterday actually and said they're in.
Excellent.
We sent a couple of people and a couple of news.
can- All right,
So whatever specifics we want to ask for.
yeah, we'll be putting out a vendor, here's the details and here's what we're expecting, and I don't know whether
Info sheet.
an info sheet, whether we have to have a liability statement or anything from.
I don't know that you do, but
Yeah, we'll talk about
I'm sure
that.
we'll ask.
Yeah.
Did Melinda talk about having anybody from our office there just to generally pitch people on the town plan? It's
No,
gonna,
we didn't.
it's gonna be a thing where people are, we'll happily, go if I can get somebody who's
All right.
available.
Good.
So I'll follow up with Melinda on that,
Okay.
but We got the postcards, we got the sticky balls, we got the banner. We're happy to.
Traveling roadshow.
It's got the roadshow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I talked to Tim Perrin at Vermont Gas. He said, yes, he's coordinating to get somebody. And I talked to, the office manager at Building Energy, and she said definitely yes. They are excited to be there, and they will bring people from both their energy conservation construction side and their solar side.
Nice.
So,
Vermont Energy Co-op is the outfit that does a lot of heat pumps.
Oh, I
right?
had seen
right.
comment too. Oh, I'll take that. See.
Kevin, that,
Yeah, yeah, I'll send comment. I forget whether I contact them or not. I'll have to look into that. Actually. Let me check what would have been email.
that Building Energy, this is a note, as of this Monday, just hired a new coordinator for all their energy conservation outreach and everything. I don't have the person's name yet. They just started this Monday, so, they'll probably be coordinating this.
Okay.
So we have a growing number. This is cool. And we purposely, in South Burlington, there's the Drive Electric Week. South Burlington picked the first weekend and South Burlington picked the second weekend. So we're preempting them by doing the weekend.
There you go. Great.
And then if you've seen the South Burlington, it's huge. They're taking over the whole city of the city center.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they've got seminars and they've got this, and Burlington has bands coming in and chant and all this. I mean, they've just been in food trucks, and I mean, they're just making it like a
Jeez.
huge carnival. So we're down to earth.
Yeah, well,
But look
With
at
a
this.
warm-up act.
Yeah, look at this. We're gonna
Yeah,
have, we
that's
could
terrific.
potentially have a lot of people there. So
Matt's got his hand raised.
that,
Yeah, Reed, I just wanted to ask, should we be updating the status on this spreadsheet here as we hear back from the different vendors and partners so we can keep track of who we've got coming?
yeah,
Or
we probably need a column that says confirmed, and then we could put a yes.
Status.
Yeah, because status is really who was making the contact, you know.
So we
right,
have, we do have edit access here.
Let me see.
Yeah, if we,
No, I don't on this one.
oh,
Do we,
I think you,
Matt, do you?
yeah, we do. Well, I was able to add
So
Lily's
this
name
is-
and email.
Yeah, okay.
yeah, this is a
Yeah.
share drive that Melinda's.
Add another column.
yeah.
Okay,
What do we wanna call it?
I would have called it status, but we already have that.
well, we can change that.
Yeah.
That should really be the
Contact.
contact.
Yeah.
Status should be the contact, and then, and then we need a status. And then, confirmed, yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, pending or confirmed or.
yeah, whatever, waiting for reply,
Yeah, cool.
yeah. Cool.
And do you
I know.
want us to update these, Reed, as we?
Yes,
Here, back.
please, yeah, because you'll
Okay.
have the particular information, yeah. So as you saw, Eric just did stuff, yeah, good, cool. Great. I think this will be good. We need a weather confirmation, it must be good weather.
Yeah.
Like last year, no more rain.
Pattern's gotta break at some
Yes.
point.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yes. Terrific. Anything else on this? I mean, we're in the planning stage, we're getting people things, I know Building Energy asked, you have kind of a flyer on it, I thought I would just kind of throw one together about, what's expected of the vendors. The
Yeah,
emails I wrote,
Linda gave us a good starting point. It was from
Did you have
one
something?
that one I did probably 15 years ago, and she gave it to us. It's in one of her emails. It was,
That's more of a
An energy
promotional piece,
fair.
though. You're
yeah,
talking
we
about
need,
something for
we
the
need
vendors.
one, something for the vendors,
And then.
like what to expect. you know,
Publicity one.
dear vendor here, you know, we're
Yeah.
glad you've confirmed with us. Here's the
Show up
date,
at
the
12:30.
time, show up at this time for setup.
Okay,
What you should bring, you know, your tent, your table, your chair, your promotional materials, your solar panels, your whatever you're bringing, you know. Let us know you have any special needs and then send that, and then we do need a whole promotional piece. Front porch
to me, that's
forum,
what Belinda sent
different
out.
places.
Yeah.
I need to talk to the Observer and see if we can get a freebie, a little square as we come up to those. Just get something out on maybe the 7th and the 14th.
I asked Melinda if she had the original. She just had a
Oh, shit, PDF.
PDF of
The
it,
30
you can't
gig.
edit, you gotta just copy it and
Yeah.
do it over.
I will build a vendor contact sheet and send it out for people to look at.
Okay.
Anything else about it right now? I think we're in good shape. Terrific. All right. Other business, Living Green articles, but most specifically the current one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so I don't know, I sent an email with two different, so. What I did is I put together in the article, Amy didn't think we should put in, any rules of the road, she just wanted to keep it nice and simple, it's about safe routes, but I just couldn't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to. Kids gonna go out on the roads, gotta give them some guidelines.
Yeah.
Or at least their parents. And so I've just put in a couple very short ones and then.
Yours was the
And
yellow.
Reed put it, formatted it a lot better than mine and put it in the box, thank you. But that's what I came up with, just those I think are like enough to get you started, it doesn't increase it.
So this is for kids, or this is for everybody?
It's for everybody, it
Okay.
says, it says cars should keep, you know.
Yes.
Recommended 4 feet away, which is the Vermont law, which should be recommended is like. Maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't, but anyway.
It's not much.
But it also, so it informs the parents how to treat bikes maybe a little bit more safely and think about it at least. So, maybe I change the order on it, that's about it, but then she went and she showed that list to her local motion colleagues, and they came up with this vehicle list.
I
Yeah.
saw that, yeah.
And it's like scary, like, oh, you know, like, I'd be afraid to send my kid out. with it. It's
Yeah,
really
it's so
good.
much.
What I was thinking in terms of how it lays out in the Observer is we have our article.
Yeah,
Typical of an, you know, you see what's called a call out, where they put a box in the middle and it might be a quote from somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna ask Jason Starr if he put this rules as the call out in the middle of the
Yeah.
article.
And then have it,
And then, so they see that, and so you're reading the article and the columns flow around it, but then that sticks out in the middle. But looking at the local motion one, you can't have, our call out can't
That's
be
a whole
35 you
Yeah.
know, lines long, it just, it's,
right, so
it's,
she's,
he would probably redline it anyway and cut it out down. You
Yeah.
can't put that much page on that, you
so
know?
she actually, right from the beginning, said, no, make the rules of the road a separate article, you can go do that some other
Yeah.
time, right? But I felt it necessary to do it, I did.
I mean, we've invited her to contribute, but we're still the owners of the
Yeah,
article.
right, so, right, and she's fine with it now, but it's, she just, her colleagues wanted more information, which
Yeah.
is.
And they can contribute, but I mean, they wanna write a public interest piece. The Observer is more than willing to print everything people give them. Yeah, I mean, we have a really good relationship with them, and they never turn down articles, so, you know.
Okay, yeah, so then I'll give them that feedback
Yeah,
and.
yeah.
So, but, and I also would like to put in the safe routes. To school symbol where it shows the Vermont State.
Yeah, so what I was
And-
thinking of doing that was asking Jason if he could use that as a picture header above the article.
So turn it
Instead-
sideways.
Yeah, I was thinking, you know, if you had a picture of kids on bikes and then you overlaid
Yeah,
that
I
in
looked,
on
I
it.
looked for some, and I tried to
And,
get some.
you know, I could talk to them about that,
Yeah, all
because
the
they
ones
have,
I,
they have access to so much stock photo. That
Yeah.
they, and their layout people can do stuff like that. He's done a lot for us with photos that we haven't had available.
right, because to me, the ones I liked were, you had to pay for. So I was
Yeah,
looking
well,
for,
they have
I was
licenses.
looking for ones that had windmills and bicycles, because, you know, tying it into the energy committee.
They have licenses to so much stock photo as a newspaper company, that's, you know, I have sent him stuff before and I said, I don't really own this one, and he pops them up and.
Now, I
throws them
have a
in.
T-shirt that has a smokestack with an arrow going to a windmill on a bicycle. I thought that would be perfect. Well,
So Kevin drafted the article. I did some work drafting in it. If anybody else has any, today is
8th.
the
Ninth.
9th. The publication date on this is the 24th. I'd like to get it to them by a week from today. So if anybody has any other comments, and then we can clean up the article. And if you don't, just let us know, you know.
Is that, you wanna read those out and?
Yeah.
So Matt, you wanna give it a listen, and anyone else?
Safe routes to school, rules of the road. Beware of your surroundings. I wonder if we want to change that to be aware of your surroundings.
What did I say?
It says beware.
Be what, I do?
Yeah.
No, I said be aware.
Well, right, that's an edit. That's number one.
That's spell checker taking off.
Maybe.
Oh, man.
Yeah, right, that's scary for kids, right? Number two, cyclists must stay as far to the right as possible, except to avoid a road hazard, preparing to turn left, passing, it says pass another cyclist walker. Passing.
Yeah.
Next one, walkers must walk against the direction of traffic. If walking in the road, I might change that to along the road, but in the road's probably fine.
Okay,
Matt would probably be the pro there to wordsmith that one. Motorists must exercise due care by slowing down and leaving a recommended 4 feet separation between the vehicle and the cyclist / walker. And then the final one is cyclists, walkers must obey all traffic signals.
All right.
So a few edits on there.
okay, but is it?
I think
That's
that's.
comprehensive enough. without
Yeah.
If you
going
start
overboard?
calling out all the specifics like they did in that other one, you just don't know where to stop. I think keeping it
Oh, wait,
simple.
what about report unsafe intersections or maybe,
Put that in the article, but not in that box.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
Yeah. So we still have time. We got about a week. Let me get the calendar, 9, 16, 20, this week's day. 1, 2, 4, yeah, publishes. So the 19th is my deadline. I have to have it to them. But I don't like waiting till the last day, so if I can have it by the 16th.
Oh, the week from.
I mean, I've done it right up to the last minute, but you know, that's not fair to them either. They gotta put a newspaper together, so.
Yes.
So,
okay, so we'll just get the edits that we found now.
okay, I can get in there and do
You
that.
you mark it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Do this.
And we don't need to talk about the next article is yet, or do you have an idea?
Anybody who has an article, just as a comment, the last one, the GMP helped me write. I've had actually people come up to me and talk, say they read it.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
Excellent.
That's what happens when you have a professional writer. Kristen, Kelly
Carlson, what wasn't she at the news,
Yeah,
TV
yeah,
news?
right.
Anchor,
I interviewed her and then she critiqued my article. She improved on it, yes. So, anyway, so that I have, including Mike Isham, who, at Farmers Market, had mentioned he had read it, and other folks had come up to me and said they read it, so that was good. Now, any other topics that we haven't covered in the past, if somebody wants to take one on for the September article, which would be published the 28th. We got plenty of time now. Somebody just has a thought in their head, and they want to start writing things, that'd be great. Yeah. Is there any topic on the energy front as we see this one? Safe routes to school, first glance, it's not energy, but it is, especially with the lead-in paragraph you had, it was very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
See, that's that
That was
hook
it.
that you write, that it isn't just facts, but you make a hook to what we're planning and what we're doing and how it'll influence people, and that's what gets the article going. In fact, the GMP one about sustainability started out saying, and looking back at all the horrible winter storms we had last year, the flood came and Jason Starr changed that to the flooding last week or something along that line.
Or right.
After I had submitted it, so, yes.
Without your
Yeah,
permission.
well, he's the editor.
That's what they do.
And so he went in there and put that in, and I thought, because I said to my wife, God, I wish I had had something about flooding, and I
Yeah.
read it and it was there. So he went in at the last minute and wrote that edit, you know, because the flood had just happened.
Wow, he's a
So the
professional.
whole thing, so my personal opinion, we come to the energy plan and the town plan, and the whole thing is sustainability and the topics. That whole energy sustainability has got to be a big long-term plan, as you're seeing in South Burlington now.
Mhm. Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
hope that project, O'Brien's project, put the pointer in it. I know being reported into the side of all the other developers, you know.
Well, you have someone who says they, they really believe they can, build a net zero residential subdivision. That works in a production housing pro forma. And, that's impressive. And I think probably some of it comes down to scale. I would love to know if they are bringing any revenue from the non-net zero side of the development into the net zero side that's helping that happen. Certainly it got them off the ground.
Yeah.
What's this, a development going in that's all net zero?
Yes.
I think I saw a headline, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like all the residential stuff that's gonna go in around Old Farm Road.
Is it those like apartment buildings? Are they the ones?
I think that's like phase one and that's not net zero, but I think there's other components going closer towards Tech Park that will be.
Yeah, it's really quite interesting to do it, and it shows it's feasible. And by the way, Green Mountain Solar was just chosen to be the vendor for all of that solar going in.
But they're doing like lots of rooftop solar,
Yes.
battery storage in every
Yeah,
unit,
that's GMP doing that. part
charge,
of it.
EV charge
Yeah,
everywhere, and a bunch of other stuff, so.
yeah.
It's gotta be the biggest development in the state, doesn't it, that whole place?
Yeah, and I
It's
can't, I
massive.
keep forgetting if the name is Hillside something
Yes,
or, but you can go
Yeah.
see a rendering of the whole thing at build out in multiple phases, and
Right.
it's a, it's like two Finney residential components back to back almost. And yeah,
And
it's
how much is there now, half of it?
not even,
No,
maybe
no.
a third, maybe a
Really?
quarter is there.
Wow.
I mean, those two big buildings that you can see from Kennedy, each of them has two more big buildings to be built in front of it, coming down towards Kennedy along that main street.
It is blasted the daylights out of that whole.
Yeah, it's big.
Wow, I thought there's that much demand for people who want to live there.
As much as they build around here, it gets occupied, it seems
Yes.
like, right?
But, well, when we were putting together our input for bylaw changes, I brought up, it didn't go anywhere, but, you have the, what is the allocations that are given out, I forgot.
Like growth management.
Growth management, and I think I had said, and it didn't seem to get, what we did for affordable housing, I think we said that if you're gonna put in affordable housing, you don't have to go through growth management, you can go around it, right? Could, something like a net zero,
Mhm.
could we say that if you're gonna do net zero, you bypass the, and should we have tried to get that through the select board and?
So what was done in 2018 or 19 was the addition of what's called the high flyer standard,
Yeah.
which was a project that on this growth management 100-point scale scored at least 70 points and made the highest possible score in the energy efficiency category, which generally to do that, it was, above and beyond in terms of the efficiency of the units. And there was a certain percentage of on-site power battery storage provided. It wasn't quite up to net zero, but it was a high bar. And so far, nobody has gone after the high flyer score as a way. So the Summerfield project achieved the 70-point score just based on all of its various attributes. But the developer said, I'm just going to go through growth management. I'm not going to commit to all of that solar and battery storage. And I think some of it comes down to, which developers have what comfort level with adding that, think about it, you're building a house and you're dealing with plumbing and electrical and insulation and framing and roofing and building envelope and all that. And so it says, how about another whole system?
Right.
How about a power generation system? And how about another system, an energy storage system? And for some folks, that's just, it's adding two more things that make it just that much more complicated or that much more uncertain. Clearly, O'Brien has said, we see a way that we can make this commitment.
GMP has said they will help promote that, get it in there. And so that's the catalyst.
Takes the edge.
It isn't just, and like I say, Green on Solar is going to be the one putting it together, for the rooftops, and so they aren't like the builder going, oh gee, now I gotta go buy solar panels, now I don't know how to hook this up.
Right.
You've got partners coming in with them,
I don't know if you were gonna talk about Isham Farmers Market.
We are a little bit,
Okay.
go on, because it is 10 out of 2.
I have like 3 minutes of one more thing I want to preview for you when you're done with that. So just.
So Isham Farmers Market, we've done 2 weeks out there. Had 15 plus people engage us. Most people are there for farmers and food, and so, but we've had, and we skipped last night and we're skipping next week, and we're doing the last 2 weeks of September, which these are Tuesdays, so that'd be August. August the 22nd and 29th. We were trying to confirm Green Mountain Solar for the 22nd and Efficiency Vermont for the 29th.
That's tent partners or table partners.
Table partners, yeah. And tent table, and then the 5th possibly with I forget which vendor we're trying to get in there. And and then that would probably be the end of it, because we said we were gonna do 4 to 5 weeks total, and that's what we're gonna do. So that's
I was supposed to go next week, but all the slots filled for those 3.
Well, so the 8th and the 15th, it takes 2 people to pull this thing together, because you gotta come here, you gotta get materials, you gotta go. Kevin's been donating the table and the tent, he's on vacation for 2 weeks, and so we just decided we'll take a hiatus and then we'll start up again, so. It can be done with one person, but it's a bit of a hustle to get it put together. And an item I threw on here, Champlain Valley Fair, their web training is right now. It's but we Matt had asked them to they record it, which they agreed to. So if for those of us who are going to go help them with that button up campaign, that we can listen to that recording just as soon as we get the link to it, send that out.
Yes. If you get a hold of it, yes, don't share it.
That.
So I wanted to preview something for you folks that'll be on your agenda next time. On August 1st, we received a 45-day notice from the Public Utility Commission. Global Foundries is going to be pursuing two very large solar installations in Williston, at Mountain View Road and Redmond Road, and then further down Redmond Road and Chip Alley. And in
On
work
their property or?
on their property. So in working with the town manager, we have an energy plan. We have substantial deference to that energy plan from the PUC. The energy plan has siting policies in it. And to my knowledge, it's the first time the energy committee's really had the opportunity, the town's really had the opportunity to run a big solar project up against the siting policies. So we're going to be sort of dividing and conquering a little bit with siting policy comments, probably coming directly from this committee, and planning commission taking on other comments and sort of filtering, like, we're going to talk about it at the conservation commission. They've already said they'll do a habitat disturbance assessment as part of the project.
Beautiful
et cetera.
elm back there,
Yeah, so I'll show you guys
really nice.
if I can get the PDFs. to pop
Ancient elm, I
up.
don't know how it survived.
A tree, a tree, yeah, one by itself.
Yeah.
So this is the notice
At least that's where I
for,
think it is.
No, what's that one? That was?
this is
Oh,
at
it's
Mountain
on-
View and Redmond.
Oh, it's on the corner.
Okay.
Oh, it's that big field on the
So we're
corner.
talking about, like, I think this is like over 8,000 panels total.
I'm sorry, where is this?
So
Where you go to the recycling center.
Yeah.
Oh,
this
okay.
is, this is Mountain View where my cursor is here, and then this is Redmond Road.
Do you know how many
going in.
megawatts that is?
I do, but hang on, I'll go back to so this one is. Yeah. I think they say right on the front page, I don't wanna get it wrong, this is 1.5. And then the other one at Chip Alley. If I get it.
What is that?
That's Mountain.
That must be.
That's the
that
driveway.
Private road back there.
Chip Alley, here we go, so Chip Alley is. I think is 2, but don't quote me till I see it, sorry, 3.5 all by itself.
Wow.
So, and then I'll show you what Chip Alley looks like. Obviously, Mountain View will be more visible in terms of view shed impact, but
Yeah,
Chip Alley, this is Redmond Road again.
Oh, yeah,
along
okay,
here.
okay, so those.
Chip Alley is the drive.
Yeah,
There's the farmhouse right there.
yeah.
Do they own that farmhouse?
Yeah,
It's
They
the
do.
abandoned one. isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
well,
it's storage or something.
Yeah, storage,
Right,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you can see they've got a stream and a wetland here.
There's a big
Yeah.
power line cut somewhere near there on that road too.
Yeah, because Velcro's.
Yeah, Velco comes down, it's kind of in between the two sites.
But this isn't grid connected, this is connected to their own site, right?
Well, so this is all part of their approval to become their own utility.
Right.
Is they have a green energy generation mandate, and this is part of how they're proposing to meet it, is with these two installations in Williston.
So they
There's
would,
a really gorgeous elm. It's like right here.
Hmm.
That's huge and
Right.
beautiful.
What are the green dots in there, the green circles?
So there's a tree. Oh, no, sorry.
I assume that would be a tree that they would be planting. They're probably proposing some visual buffering,
Mhm.
and
Okay.
maybe a little wetland restoration down at the bottom of the wetland there.
Yeah, okay.
And part of it is probably because, there are some trees in the area where they're proposing the installation that they would remove. So that, there's a little label up here
so
says
most of that's
Trees to
scrub and,
Yeah,
poplar. and,
yeah, and fields.
Juniper and
overgrown
stuff.
Fields,
Yeah.
yeah. Ah, interesting.
But yeah, so these are, I think, by far the largest installation, that Williston's seen. And, from an energy generation perspective, great. But deserves a sort of a full review under the energy plan citing policies, and, we'll obviously, between myself and Melinda Simon, will help staff that review and, help get comments back to the PUC, so the town can participate. And I don't know, this is out there, it's public record on the PUC website. I think it's still kind of early and kind of quiet. The 45-day notice is basically saying, we're gonna file this application in 45 days, and then that will set off the hearing process. So the idea here is the town gets some time to prepare to respond to something like this and then participate in the proceedings.
Hmm.
So that's it. You'll see a lot more of this next time.
Yeah, Williston doesn't have any big, I mean, South Burlington sure does, and Essex has big installation.
Yeah, we
Who's
have
on Mountain View.
Mountain View.
Global Founders has one there too.
Yeah,
Right, that's
Department of
pretty
Energy.
big.
DOE's got one back there too.
DOE has
DOE is small,
Uh,
the Global Founders is the large.
closer
Oh,
to,
okay.
2A is DOE, I think, the one in the fence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did some work there myself.
So.
Yeah. And then, yeah. Interesting, it's cool.
I mean, it looks like it's,
Oh,
I
it's
mean,
impressive.
it's not gonna offend anybody, I can think of.
No.
Maybe the governor.
You'll see it more from Essex than you'll see it from Williston. It's similar, you know, the Velco storage building is across the road here, across Redmond Road, up that big long driveway.
Right.
It's a giant, it's a 10-acre cleared and graded site with a pretty big building on it. And they even, I remember when we took it to DRB, they did a view shed analysis and they're like, you know, you can kind of see it from Essex and that's about it.
Yeah, you can see that
You
from
really,
anywhere.
you really can't. The scale of things out there is just really big.
Yeah,
So that's that. Stay tuned.
that's interesting, yeah, that's what it takes, big installation. Wow, thank you.
Sure.
All right, well, it's about 2 minutes of 8. Does anybody have any other comments? Matt?
No,
Still
all
there.
set.
Okay, anybody else? All right, I think we shall adjourn at 7:58. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it. Good meeting.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Matt, for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for this.
See you everyone next time.
See you.
See you, Matt.